if your time is limited and you just want to hit some check boxes, group tour is probably great. But if you're honestly thinking about relocating to someplace, and thinking about, a long-term stay, go solo, because that's how you're going to be living your life anyway.
Welcome to El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. Each episode, Tony sits down with travelers, expats, creatives, and community voices from across Latin America and beyond, sharing stories of travel, culture, connection, and the journeys that shape us. So grab a cafecito or a tea and enjoy the conversation.
This was a podcast that was not really planned for today, but this is really cool. I actually have someone visiting me who is a friend of a friend, and actually Heather, which is our mutual friend. I haven't seen her, I would say at least, maybe it's about 20 years. It's been a long time. So would you like to just introduce yourself? Just say who you are and...
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Perry. I'm originally from the United States, from Utah, Salt Lake City. So I grew up in Salt Lake City, moved out of the city when I was 22, went to law school, believe it or not.
Okay, I could believe
for
it.
3.5 years.
We've all done strange things in our lives.
So I practiced for 2 years, decided I wasn't really happy with that lifestyle, so I started looking for another career. I went to the New York State job board where I was living, and I basically looked through like 1,000 different careers, and teacher was the one that kept kind of popping up. So in 2014, I packed my bags, and I went to China, and now I've been living abroad since 2014. So I guess that's 12 years? Something like my 11th year of teaching.
Okay. And interesting enough, I just did a podcast recently about an Irish guy who was teaching in Colombia. Mm-hmm. And so that was episode 52. And that was just his first experience of teaching. So but today we're not going to talk too much about your teaching background.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What I'm curious about, you're here in Cuenca, mm-hmm. and you were just mentioning to me that you're here on a group tour. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And my question to you, which will be the question for today's podcast, is group tour versus individual travel. So why did you decide to do a group tour on this particular occasion?
Well, so let me give you the structure of how my tour company works.
Okay.
Basically, my tour company is what's known as a reseller. So what they do is there are some days where I am solo. So like yesterday and today, it's just been me and a driver who speaks English, and he takes me around the city and he gives me an introduction to things. But for the first 4 days of travel, I was placed in a group. And so I had to be social. I needed to be a little bit more extroverted than I usually am. And so to your question, why would somebody want to do a group tour? I think that there is a great security in knowing that you are with people. There are some places, one of the places was Cotopaxi. Mm-hmm. I don't see how it's feasible for a person like myself to go up there by myself. Probably have to get a car. You have to know where you're going. You would be relying on your instincts because there's no internet up at Cotopaxi. So you're paying for, economy of scale. And so you've got all these people that want to do the same thing. It's much more economical than me driving out there by myself, possibly getting lost, possibly getting stranded, no internet. It's things like that it's just there's security in traveling in a group.
Okay. I asked because one of the ways that I usually travel is solo, and most of the people that come on the podcast are solo travelers, and they're doing solo adventures. But it's always good to hear the other side. What I really want to get across is that one side is not better than the other. They're just different.
Oh, sure. I could pick and choose, if I wanted to be in a group or not. I think my preference is to go solo. Okay. But again, sometimes it's just... I find it difficult, or maybe I'm just too worried about my own security. And so I find a group tour that I can go with, and someone else does all the thinking. I just outsource all of the work to the tour guide. They take care of everything. And I guess that's why they want a tip at the end, is because they've done a little bit of hard work.
And how, like, for example, in my case, I do travel planning for people. So what I do, people contact me and I plan their itinerary, and I have them via WhatsApp while they're traveling and coordinate things, and they could always get in touch with me as they're traveling. Have you ever tried an option like that where you have sort of like somebody in the background, but you're still traveling solo?
I don't think so. Because typically if I've purchased like a package from a tour company, everything's basically pre-planned. It's not so much of a person who's taking my ideas and then spitting something out. Okay. When I went to Bhutan, it might have been a little bit of mixing and matching. It was still very much a pre-packaged role, and I was doing that by myself. So the tour company sent a driver, and I was with the driver the whole time. They took me around. There were days that I had tour guides, but it's not like the tour guides traveled with me all the time. Or maybe actually, no, I think they did. Now that I think about it, I think I had a driver, I had a tour guide, and there was me. And so that's what we did. Okay. On a scale, would you say you do more group tours or more individual tours? Well, when I was living in China, most of my travel was solo. So that's definitely going to skew the balance a lot.
That's quite interesting too, because usually in countries like China are where people usually do group tours because of all the...
Sure, language barriers are a huge thing to overcome. And so, but the good thing is that when I was doing all that traveling, I'd been living in the country for 2 years already, and my Mandarin was very good. And so I didn't feel like I needed anyone. So I would go on the trains by myself. If I needed to go somewhere, if there was a tourist destination, I would pay for a taxi. I would literally call someone on the day. Maybe my hotel would arrange something, but I would get basically a taxi and I would drive to where I wanted to go. I mean, I still remember this time when I think I went to it's called the Hanging Temple.
I've heard of that, actually.
And I'm trying to remember where it is in China, but it's not too far from Beijing. It's maybe a 7 or 8 hour train ride. Yeah, I flagged somebody down, and then there were 2 boys in the back who were going to the same place. And the 3 of us went to the Hanging Temple together.
Okay. And we were talking earlier before I turned the microphone on about cruises.
Sure.
Going on different cruises. Have you done many cruises?
I've done, I think it's 2. They were Norwegian cruises. There was one out of Miami to the Bahamas, and then there was another one that was of the Middle East. And I believe we left from Doha. It was 7 days, and then we ended up in Dubai, I think, at the end. I mean, I was going primarily just for fun for myself because, I can do that. There's a lot to do on those cruises. But, it's also a place that you can meet other sort of similarly minded individuals. Okay. So that was always nice.
Yeah, because in my mind, the idea of a cruise is sort of the same idea as of a group trip. And also, have you done any of these all like resorts where everything is included and everything? Have you done that type of travel?
I don't believe I've ever done that. I guess I think that those are a little too ritzy for my style. I'm typically going for like the $50 a night hotel. So that'll get you a bed, a shower, maybe a nice breakfast in the morning. I don't need to stay at the Four Seasons or, the Hilton or the Marriott, some of these sort of name brands. Perfectly happy sleeping in something less than that. Okay.
When I first started, my very first travel that was not related with my family, because I grew up traveling to a lot of different places, was actually, I remember going to Mexico to one of these, they pick you up at the airport, they give you the cocktail in the little minivan, they drive you into the resort, they do all that. And I also went, in Jamaica, I went to one. And so I did about 3 of those in my very early years of travel. And then later on I was like, oh, okay. So I could put a backpack on and just grab a Lonely Planet guide and go from one step to another. And and that sort of changed how I traveled from there on.
And maybe I haven't done it because part of me feels like it would be a little too like much of a bubble. You know, it's going to be a lot of affluent people from around the world, you know, staying at these resorts, and so you're not going to really get like a true sense of life. You know, it's going to feel a little too sterile, you know, like it's not real.
No, I can sort of see what you mean. The three that I've been to, I actually did really enjoy it, but there was this feeling of like, there was a movie years ago. I'm not sure how I'm not sure how old you are, and I won't ask you how old you are. But there was a movie years ago that was called The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. The whole idea is that he lived the whole time within this space, and it was like, what's outside? And although I enjoyed being at the resort, I remember the one in Mexico, there was this feeling of like when people would say to me, oh, have you been to Mexico? Sometimes I'd go, no, I wasn't there, because I was in this enclosed space where all these activities are going on. And I could see that, like for somebody who, at the time when I did something like that, I worked in New York City as a banker. Okay, I have exactly add a day to a long weekend, and I had a 4-day, 5-day journey, and it was like, okay, I don't want to be thinking about anything. Right. I want to go to sleep, wake up, have breakfast, go to the beach for a while, come back down, have lunch, hang out for a little bit, and then go back to sleep again. Sleep. What is that? Repeat, and then
eat, sleep, repeat. Eat, sleep, repeat.
Exactly. So it was my eat, sleep, repeat phase, and of course later on, my adventure phase came in where I wanted to see the world and I wanted to see what was happening and then getting involved with communities. But definitely, it's different in that way. What's the dynamic of the group, and like how many people have been in your group?
I'm trying to think, which day was it? There was a day that was, we all kind of got together and it was really, really fun. And I'm blocking them because I've been in 4 different days and it's 4 different groups, right?
Okay.
And so I'm like trying to remember. I wouldn't say that any of the groups necessarily all like gelled or anything like that. All I remember it was Kilauea.
Okay.
You're probably familiar with the setup. You know, it's a huge lake, but you can hike down to the waterfront. Mm-hmm. It's 1.7 kilometers, but it's basically the altitude that you gain is intense. You know, so you're basically hiking upstairs the whole time. And there were probably 6 of us that really kind of bonded together. And so we hiked together. And it wasn't necessarily anything about age or nationality or gender. I was the only man in that group. But we just seemed to have a really good time. Like we were having good discussions about just life and things like that. And so it really helps when, you know, you've got people that are sort of open-minded and they're chill and they just want to talk about, and they're able to talk about just anything. And I think that's what was happening is we were just kind of talking about anything. Okay. How great Ecuador was, or home life back in, because one of them was a German. There were a couple of us from the States. There was a guy who was from, where was he from? I think it was Hungarian. Okay. And he ended up joining us probably halfway up the trail. But yeah, it's just that was a nice bonding experience. But the other times have been kind of like, you know, I'm with my boyfriend, girlfriend. That's what we're here for. So we're gonna stay by ourselves. Yeah.
What's been the largest group that you've been in?
Oh, I mean, I think when I was
not being on the ocean.
Sure. But I think it was probably one of the what do they call it when you go offshore? But it was like a cruise excursion, I think is what it's called. You know, so my largest was probably a cruise excursion, and I want to say Dubai because we had a full bus, and so it had to have been 50 people or so on that bus.
Here we go. 50 people on the bus, or even in one of the smaller groups where maybe you only had 10 people. Tell me about a time where there was just somebody that you're just like, oh my gosh, could I throw this person out the window of the bus? Because not everything is roses. There's got to be that person. Because, you know, we walk into a room with 100 people and we're going to love some people and we're going to despise others. I shouldn't say despise. That's a bit too strong.
I did have someone this week.
Don't use their names.
Well, I don't even think that I know their names. I know where they're from because they told me.
Okay.
So I won't even say that.
You can say that.
But it wasn't even necessarily something so like egregious. I just didn't vibe with that person.
And that happens. We're human beings.
Because we were sitting. Let me think. What day was this? Because I actually saw him twice. Because I saw him once when I went to Kilauea, so he was on that group. And then a day passed. And then I went on a tour to Baños, and he was on the same tour because, my tour company, had bought into Viator's tours. Okay. And so he was on both tours. So the first time that I saw him at Kilauea, he just seemed kind of docile. He didn't seem particularly interested in getting to know anybody else. He was just sitting in the back, kind of nibbling on his little snacks and stuff like that. He chose not to hike down to the waterfront, which is fine, The second time that I saw him, we were a little more talkative, a little more social, primarily because the group was significantly smaller. I think that was only 7 people. This is going to sound really petty.
No,
But during lunch, he was served a dish, and I believe it was the trout. And I thought, okay, great, he got trout. Then the waiter comes out, and she gives me something with, shrimp. And I'm like, no, I ordered the trout. And she's like, no, you ordered the shrimp. And I'm sure you ordered the shrimp. And I was like, looking at people, I was like, did I order the shrimp? Because I'm pretty sure that I said trout. And he looks at me and he's like, well, you don't remember what I ordered. And he's sitting right next to me with his trout. Okay. And I just kind of glared at him and I was like, what did you order? And he's like, I don't remember. And I was just like, I kind of want to throw my hands up in the air and just be like, this was 10 minutes ago. Can't remember what you ordered. So we ended up switching dishes. I was pretty certain that I had ordered trout because I was trying to eat as much seafood as I could in Ecuador just because it's so available. And that was it was something petty, but I just was like, you know what? I don't need to deal with you. I think other people that I don't vibe with though are typically just people who sound like they're from the suburbs. Okay. Just sort of these like, hi, my name is Meredith, and I just spend all my time at the house, curling my hair, talking about small town politics, and I just love getting angry at the cashier when they don't hold my register up right.
So Meredith, if you're out there, he's coming for you. Or don't go on a tour with him. Okay. That doesn't sound too bad. I thought there was going to be like a fist-up fight or something. Is that...
I would have to do some thinking about that.
Okay.
I think this example that I gave you was best because of the recency effect. Like other things that are older, I'll remember it tonight at 11 o'clock before I'm about to go to bed. I'm just like, I should have said that.
Okay. Your mind is already decided. Like when would you recommend a tour and when would you not recommend a tour? What makes you decide which one, when and when not to?
I would say, so the reason I guess I chose to do sort of a packaged tour in Ecuador was primarily because I had so little energy beforehand to plan it. Like, I think I booked this tour back in February, and even in February, I could already see that my schedule was just going to be packed. I'm a teacher, so we're at school, from 7:30 to 4:30 every day. That can be incredibly tiring and just grueling all the hours. And so finally, when you're able to leave school at 4:30, you want to go home and kind of collapse some days. But I've got an appointment or I've got dinner plans. So it's like you kind of just yearn for a free night. And so those free nights, you just didn't want to do anything. And so I just loved the ability to click on something and say, plan it for me. Do it. I think the other thing that I would obviously think about with a group tour is just how remote the area is and how easy it is for you to travel by yourself. If you're traveling in a group, you can almost be assured that someone's going to speak your language. Most tours these days are given in English, and the mother tongue of whatever country you're in. And so you can kind of expect to be able to at least communicate with a tour guide. And so you don't necessarily struggle with the language barrier. There is some security and comfort in that. Do I mind the language barrier? No. I think it's fine. Pointing and gesturing is fine for me.
Okay.
You know, like that's part of the adventure. I mean, I can remember the first time I went to Thailand. It was Christmas. Didn't know any Thai. Why would I know Thai? And I was so happy that I was able to navigate the city without knowing Thai, because I was just kind of pointing and reading things off of a map, and I was asking people. So I did not have a group tour that time. It was kind of an adventure.
Okay. You seem to be a very social person. What would you recommend for people if they are going to do a group tour to get the best out of it? Like how...
It was either today or yesterday I was reading something, and it's this idea that traveling really teaches you tolerance, because you come to understand that what is regular or normal for you isn't necessarily regular or normal for a lot of people. And so you get to see sort of that person's sense of normality or what's common in their sort of heritage. And so going on a group tour, you just can't be judgmental. You know, you really have to be open to meeting people where they are. You know, so whatever their level of English is, you know, they're being tolerant with my poor Spanish. Mm-hmm. So yeah, being open-minded, but also trying to be an active contributor. I know that when I've gone on a tour, I sometimes can be sort of the negative Nancy because I'm in a bad mood or my attitude's off, you know, and I'm just kind of like, ugh, you know, can this trip be over? And so I don't get the benefits of being in the group. And so it's just a matter of trying to contribute in a positive way. And people will reciprocate, you know, because I've always been surprised. I am a little bit more introverted. I like, you know, my space. But when somebody reaches out and they're like, oh, you know what, where are you from? And we start talking and they're like, oh yeah, I've been to Utah, I've been to Zions Park. You know, something that kind of connects us. You know, that's always helpful.
Interesting you say that, because I assumed that you are going to be the one that will come over and go, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? That's my assumption. I'm sorry if I made a wrong assumption.
So it's not a wrong assumption, because I will say this. I am a person who tends to fill up the void. Mm-hmm. So if I can feel that there's like zero social beings, I will often kind of be like, okay, can't do any worse than, you know, saying hello. I mean, it was kind of funny. I went on a cruise to Antarctica in December. So what is that, 6 months ago? Mm-hmm. I did actually try to make it a point to meet at least a couple new people every day. So by the time the cruise was over, you know, it's maybe 100 passengers. It's a small ship. Mm-hmm. You know, so by the end of the cruise, I probably knew 20 people on a first name basis. And so that was really nice. And they were from all over, you know, a couple of them were from Australia. There were some Germans. There was a woman who was from the States, but she had married a French person. But yeah, so I now follow probably 7 or 8 of them.
You go on the group tour, you're with a group of people. Have you ever kept in touch with some of these people? Have you ever gone and met them again?
I mean, all 4 of them were from Perth.
Okay. So
if I ever make it to, well, they themselves were like, you're never going to make it to Perth. Because apparently they didn't think too highly of like Perth. Because they assume that everybody's going to like Melbourne or Sydney. Okay. But honestly, sure, why not? If I'm in Australia and I know where you are, I could definitely try to see you. Because I know that I met up with 2 previous teachers that I worked with, like in Egypt. We were in Cairo. Mm-hmm. We had dinner together in Cairo. But it was just, you know, about 3 hours we were together, and then they went back to South Sudan before the war. Okay. And then I went back to Bangladesh. We knew that we were both going to be there, so we saw each other. Okay,
so if somebody was going to, say, for example, they wanted to scout out for a relocation, would you recommend a group tour as a first initial way, or would you say, what are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, I mean, that's a mixed bag, because I can see a solo tour going really going south real fast if you are completely uncomfortable with like the rituals and the culture that's there.
Or if you don't have someone to guide you.
If you don't have somebody to guide you. But having said that, I'm also just like, there is a loveliness in just being out there. I told you I went to law school, and I once heard the Massachusetts Supreme Court Chief Justice speak at our school. And I will never forget this expression that she said. But this idea of walking out on a tightrope with your hands, totally extended, with the air flowing around you, it's that freedom. Mm-hmm. And it's just so liberating. And I have that idea every time that I go on a solo trip, because I'm like, I'm on the tightrope right now, and I'm having the air flow underneath me, and it just feels so good. So even if you don't know the language, even if you don't know the customs, like there is a beauty in just waking up on the beaches of Vietnam with your morning coffee, and you're by yourself. There's no time. Time means nothing. And so that's just, if your time is limited and you just want to hit some check boxes, group tour is probably great. But if you're honestly thinking about relocating to someplace, and thinking about, a long-term stay, go solo, because that's how you're going to be living your life anyway. Find your tribe. Mm-hmm. The coffee shop that you like.
No, I think that's a very good piece of advice. Yeah, since you have to rush off to your group to go for dinner, I think we'll end it there for today, and we'll say hello to Heather, who put us together.
I know. Hi, Heather. Well, thanks for letting me sit here and bore you with all my tales.
No, completely fine. This is what I do. This is what I love, and I do it because I love it. Mm-hmm.
Well, you're going to get ready for the Ecuador game tonight.
Yes,
you probably have already heard the horns outside. I don't know how well your microphone picks up.
Yes, it will pick it up. So we'll hear what's going on there.
Totally good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest, check the podcast notes for links and information related to this episode. And if you have questions, stories, or topics you'd love us to explore in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Tony also helps independent travelers plan meaningful journeys throughout Central and South America, including cultural and community-based experiences. And if you'd like to support the podcast and help keep these conversations going, you'll find a contribution link in the podcast notes. Until next time, thank you for sharing a cafecito or tea with us, and safe travels wherever your journey may take you.